Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, race fans. From the Pocono Raceway, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome here to the Pocono Raceway, where today we are getting ready for the final race of the 2025 WRLA Pepsi Cup Series season. And this is the second of the two races that had to be pushed to the back end of the year. Of course, with, the little stuff that happened behind the scenes back just in May, where the Coke 600 and this race, the Axalta 400, had to be pushed to the back end of the year after being pushed to, obviously after not racing on their initially scheduled dates, which would have been the 24th for Charlotte and the 31st of May in Pocono. Obviously, we've already ran Charlotte just this past Tuesday. Wyatt Walker went on to go take the checkered flag for his first WRLA Pepsi Cup Series win. Finally, after being a part of the organization for the last 5 years, 2 of those seasons completely winless, obviously. 2020, he was part-time. Obviously, reinvigorating what was the old Walker Family Motorsports and obviously turning that into his own. When he headed into 2023, brought on both Halts, Gecka, and CG. They both went on to win, with Gecka in Milwaukee and CG at Kansas. And then this year, Abby Walker came on full-time after being part-time for a little while. She wound up going on to win at Iowa. And then finally, Wyatt Walker himself this past Tuesday took the checkered flag in the Coca-Cola 600. He arguably was one of the fastest drivers all night long. And if you watched that race at Pocono, at Charlotte, you definitely would agree that Wyatt had one of the fastest and one of the best cars that night. But now we're getting ready for the final race of the season here at the Pocono Raceway. The last time the WRLA came to Pocono was in 2020. The winner of that race, Andrew Ramsey, managed to pass Betty Johnson coming to the white flag in that particular event. Joshua Cornish top of the board right now to kick things off with a 50.593. Shania Hill second with an 860. Then Kyler Sushai, who we're looking at here, with an 893. And then 923 from Martin Nixon and a 51.019 from Michael DeFeo. Bobby McGuire just came out onto the racetrack, so he will be starting his lap here pretty shortly. McGuire Motorsports, I'd say, has also been on a tear within the last couple of races. Obviously, Janiyah finally got her first Pepsi Cup Series win at Homestead just 2 weeks ago. And then Bobby, who actually was in the Coke 600. Obviously, pretty much we kept the same order for all the part-time cars because that race's starting lineup was going to be set by points at that concurrent, obviously at that point of the season. Now obviously the 6 drivers that got drawn to race at Charlotte got to compete this past Tuesday, and Bobby McGuire was one of those that wound up winning that draw, so he got to race, and he had one of the fastest cars that night as well. Went on to finish, I believe, in the 6th position, if I remember correctly. McGuire right now currently 8th with a 50.690. Josiah Monsello, the top of the 49.965. The first driver right now to break into that 49-second bracket. Janiyah Hill in second with a 50.88. And it's Cornish with a 53.09. A 3.35 for Tyler Sustry. Martin Nixon with a 3.72. And then a 5.21 for Chase McClure. Remember, it is the top 6 drivers in this go or go homer session that will transfer on to make the 42 car field for tonight's season finale. And then from there, we'll set the starting lineup for the Axalta 400. So wound up getting her first Pepsi Cup Series win at Homestead. We just, as we mentioned a little bit ago. She also started off the season by winning the Clash at the LA Coliseum in the most dominating fashion possible. Led just about every single lap of that race, and there's been a couple times where she managed to lap Bobby. So definitely had to have made some pretty good and interesting conversations at the dinner table, if you will. But nonetheless, Shania's had herself, even despite having some ups and downs here in qualifying sessions like these. You know, she's definitely made a good share of some of these races, and some of them she's performed well, others not so much. But at Homestead, it was her time to shine, and she definitely performed well when it mattered the most, and especially at a time when, you know, McGuire Motorsports, they are going full-time next year. And you'd have to imagine with Hill's win at Homestead and Bobby's good top 10 run at Charlotte this past Tuesday, if you thought that was something, just wait till 2026. I could definitely imagine that those 2 races, specifically for both of them, was a huge morale and confidence booster heading into the 2026 season. And I have a feeling they are going to be a force to be reckoned with once the green flag drops next year. Travis Crampton jumps up inside of the top 6 with a 52.25. A little bit of drafting help with Ajax Fitzgerald in the 92. Still don't know what his plans are going to be after, well, obviously after the checkered flag waves. Obviously before the checkered flag waves, after the, hold on, let me rephrase. We don't know what his plans are going to be after the checkered flag waves here at Pocono and before the green flag waves once we get to the Clash next year. Obviously, the full season schedule for 2026 will be revealed, as will a lot of other things coming to WRLA next year. So definitely keep your eyes peeled for that. And Crampton kind of just sliding up a little bit, heading through the tunnel turn. But Crampton right now 4th on the board with a 225. That should be good enough to transfer him in. But he's got to hope and pray that nobody else, or at least another 3 cars, don't better their times to move themselves inside of the top 6. If that's the case, then obviously that will put Crampton on the outside looking in, or even worse, 8th or below. McGuire still 8th with a 361. McClure right now on the outside looking in. Well, Sustry is currently on the bubble spot. Ajax Fitzgerald, we mentioned it a little bit ago, with a 389. Here's Nikki Fox in the 32 with a 56.28. Just outside of the top 10, so things not looking too good here for Fox in what would be her last chance at making a WRLA Pepsi Cup Series race. I mean, she's made a decent amount of them this year. But, however, as far as making the final race of the season, this is all these other drivers' last chance at making a Pepsi Cup Series race before we gear up for 2026. Closing in on 5 minutes to go. So far, Josiah Munsell is the only driver that has broken into that 49-second bracket. And he is just about a full second. He's, yeah, just about a full second faster I actually wouldn't say just about, but he is just a smidge faster than Janiah Hill right now, as is, you know, for everybody else. I mean, Hill's 0.2 quicker than Joshua Cornish. Everybody else from 3rd on down to 6th, they're all pretty much right on top of each other in terms of, you know, where they're at on the other side of the decimal point, because you take a look at it, a 2.24 for Cornish, a 2.25 for Crampton, a 2.63. That is about a 38, no, a 48 1,000ths of a second difference. That's if I'm doing my math correctly. And a 2.85 for Sustry. That would be about a 12 1,000ths of a second difference. But Munsell doing pretty well, looking to make the final race of the year. I think well, obviously he's in the best shape to do it. Obviously he's in the very best shape to do it because, you know, he's in the 49-second bracket. He's well above the cutoff line, which is about 0.3. Oh, little change here. Michael DeFeo jumps up into 3rd. With a little bit of drafting help from Jordan Sumner, a 52.18 for Michael DeFeo. This is going to put Martin Nixon on the outside on the bubble spot, and Kyler Sustry will be on the outside looking in. 3 minutes to go. And if we look below the cutoff, where everybody else stacks up, Sustry is in 7th, Fitzgerald in 8th, Chase McClure in 9th, McGuire completes the top 10, and then it's Ray Atikian, Nikki Fox, Jordan Sumner, and Ryan Gundillo, who we just saw on pit road moments ago, and probably is still on pit road as we speak. Actually, nope, I stand corrected. He already made his way back out onto the racetrack. But Gundillo obviously not looking too hot here for our last go or go home, or our last knockout qualifying session of the year. Currently dead last, and you know, Gundillo, unfortunately, I mean, he didn't have the best of showings this past Tuesday at Charlotte. Got into a little scuffle down the back straightaway with Terry Walker, who was on fresh tires. What was interesting, and what was even more interesting, was that he was scored as the race leader at that point. And even after the wreck, he was still shown as the race leader. He took the caution as the leader, which was fairly interesting in my mind. Just flat out interesting things. Strange things sometimes happen here in the WRLA, and you know, that of course is one of them. Nothing against Ryan Gundillo, but that was honestly a very, very interesting turn of events that happened at Charlotte later in the going. 1 minute to go here in this go or go homer qualifying session. Right now, the top 6 still consists of Josiah Munsell, Janiah Hill, Michael DeFeo, then Joshua Cornish, who we're looking at here, Travis Crampton, and Martin Nixon. So far, there really hasn't been any other driver that has improved their lap time just enough to get themselves into the show. 30 seconds to go. Nixon crosses the stripe. No improvement to his time there. There's a 3-car string. A string of 3 cars, of course. all on top of each other. 49 seconds have been added, so that way these drivers can put down one more good lap. Fitzgerald staying tucked in the draft of the 16 of Sustry. Crampton, of course, he's in the show. With the additional 30 seconds to go, I am not really seeing much of a change in the lap times at any point between now and the next 15 seconds. I would believe that's going to be the case. So, ladies and gentlemen, your top 6 drivers that will make the final race of the season. That would be Josiah Munsell, Janiah Hill, Michael DeFeo, Joshua Cornish, Travis Crampton, and Martin Nixon. They will make the final race of the 2025 season in the WRLA Pepsi Cup Series. However, as for Kyler Sustry, Ajax Fitzgerald, Chase McClure, Bobby McGuire, along with Ray Atikian, Ryan Gundillo, Jordan Sumner, and Nikki Fox, they will all have to sit this one out, and that would be it for them when it comes to making races for this year. And they will have to go back to the drawing board and get ready for the 2026 season. If you're Bobby McGuire, it doesn't matter. You're going full-time regardless in 2026, so you can go out of this year with your head held high and watch Janiah Hill in the final race of the 2025 season. And when we come back, ladies and gentlemen, now that we know our 6 drivers that will make up the 42-car field, we're going to set the starting lineup for the Axalta 400, the final race of the 2025 WRLA Pepsi Cup Series season. It's the final qualifying session of the season. Stay tuned. We'll be back after the break.
If you want to watch a stream, you have to be ad-free because he gives you like 3 in an hour or minute. Please just do what he wants and he will give you the victory royale because he is very good at Fortnite. Not really, I'm just kidding. Yeah, he is really good at Fortnite. Yeah, he is good at Fortnite.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, where today we are now officially getting ready for the final qualifying session of the 2025 WRLA Pepsi Cup Series season. 3 rounds. Of course, round 1 is going to consist of all 42 drivers. The top 24 will move on to the second round. And then the top 12 in round 2, move on to the final round, and whoever's the fastest in round 3 wins the pole for this race. All rounds, of course, will be 10 minutes each. Quentin Moore amongst the first to come on out. Quentin Moore is returning to Durrani Racing next year. Same sponsor and all. Wound up getting his first WRLA Pepsi Cup Series win earlier this year at Auto Club Speedway after competing in WRLA competition since its inaugural year in 2017. And Moore this year, I think, has done pretty well. I'd say exceptionally well. He's had his moments under the sun. Other times, not really so much. But Quentin Moore in his final race of the season, looking to try to go out in style. Maybe to try to get one more win before the year is done and over with. So that way we can have a huge confidence booster heading into 2026. That being for Durrani Racing. Just up ahead, there's Jerry Rose in the 00. He's returning to Lightstar Racing Co. next year. In new colors, Xbox is coming on over from Nia Stidle's car to sponsor the 00 of Rose. Rose, unfortunately, is just not had a great year whatsoever. Finished dead last in the point standings. Hasn't, unfortunately, been as much of a factor as what we would have hoped. But Rose has had some good races, though, where he has shined under the spotlight. But most of the races this year have just shown how abysmal Rose's rookie campaign has been. But he is going to be returning next year with hopefully with some redemption in mind to try to get his first WRLA Pepsi Cup Series win. And really, hopefully, oh, we had a crash over in turn 1. Oh, that's Travis Crampton and Abby Walker. Well, Crampton just made the race, and Alexander, a couple more cars, I think those that might have been from the turn 1 incident. Jerry Rose, not Jerry Rose, but Zachary Fitzwater and Alexander Rowe also have damage to their cars. You would think they would take the access road, but that's not the case here. They're trying to stay as low as possible, try to stay out of everybody's way. Oh, and they just come up the racetrack just a little bit. That's actually very interesting tactics here. And both drivers are going to make their way down to pit road. Abby Walker, I believe, was just coming out on the racetrack, and Travis Crampton was just starting his lap. Fitzwater, at the particular time, he had a 1 minute 5 second time. He was just starting his lap, or at least, yeah, he just started his lap. He was coming around to complete it. And then I think Alexander Rowe, if we take a look at exactly where he stacked up at the moment that he got involved in an incident, Alexander Rowe didn't even start his lap. He didn't even start a lap, didn't even complete a lap, did nothing. Nothing for the 34 of Alexander Rowe. But here's something here for Ryan Little, top of the board with a 48.966. Terry Walker up to second with a 968. Now it's Aaron Abel to second on the board with a 936. There he is. And there's the fastest car on the racetrack right now, with less than 5 minutes to go. Emily Anderson fourth with a 49. Well, now she's sixth as Phillips goes up to fourth with a 969. And then the fastest driver in the 49 second bracket, that being Val Mosca with a 065. Stapleton jumps up to 7th. Now Rose up to 5th. Lots of changes happening inside of the top 10 as of right now. So far, driver currently on the bubble spot, that being Eric Monaco. Not anymore. Now it's Nia Steidel. Now Monaco on the outside looking in. And remember, if you don't make round 2 from 25th on down, that is where the drivers would be starting. Granted, if they don't make the second round. So far, 3 cars have yet to come out and officially complete a lap or start a lap. That being Reagan Whitlock, Abby Walker, and Alexander Rowe. Apologize there, had to close my door. But I believe now they would have already made some laps. Alexander Rowe, 37th with a 49.660. So Whitlock and Abby Walker have yet to complete a lap. Here comes Walker now. She comes across the stripe. And survey says not the best lap there for Abby Walker, a 49.617. As for Reagan Whitlock, not too bad. 16th on the board with a 49.088. So now all 42 cars have completed a lap. There's Russell Blaze in that number 69. This will be his final race for Durrani Racing before he forms his team, Death Rider Racing. Now, there's been a lot of changes as far as, behind the scenes and, what's been going on, especially in the Death Rider Racing camp, because initially it was going to be 3 cars, 2 of them being full-time. Obviously, with Wayne Lopez, this being his last race as a full-time driver, more than likely will transition to part-time work for EGI. He obviously, Blaze definitely took action and acquired that 4th spot. So now he'll still have 2 full-time cars, but now he's going to have 2 part-time cars. So that's going to be a pretty interesting deal there. See what's going to come out of it. But right now, Blaze now 7th on the board with a 49.005. Currently on the bubble spot, that being Tanner Parton in the 07, Janiah Hill on the outside looking in, just 15 1/1000ths of a second off. One minute before we have some added time. And now Quentin Moore has been bumped to the bubble spot, and now Tanner Parton is on the outside looking in as of right now. See where exactly Parton stacks up. There he is. In the 07, currently drafting with Martin Nixon, and also have got Michael DeFeo in tow. Jerry Rose just up ahead. But 10 seconds will be added here shortly, so that way these drivers can put down one more good lap to try to get him inside of the top 24, at least for those that are 25th on down. Don't think it's going to be quite enough, though. Just up ahead, there's Terry Walker, Alex Bonsignor, Nathan Stapleton. Looking to try to cap off the 2025 season overall with a great run. And so far in qualifying, The run is solid enough to move him on into the second round. And as for Parton, as we mentioned a little bit ago, his time was not able to improve. Bonsignor, 23rd, so he's just barely going to hang on. And as for Terry Walker, I don't think I see him really anywhere. That's really interesting. Or at least I can't see him at all. Well, that explains it. He's 4th on the board, so he's definitely going to be moving on into round number 2. So, with that said, ladies and gentlemen, round 1 is officially complete. And Ryan Little is going to be moving on with Aaron Abel, Miller, Terry Walker, Phillips, Taylor, Russell Blaze, Steidel, Whitlock, Fitzwater, Dorn, Anderson, Holt, Craven, Clifton, Lopez, Rose, Moscow, Munsell, Stapleton, Abby Walker, Ramsey, Bonsignor, and Quentin Moore. They will all be moving on to round number 2. You take a look from 25th on down. This is exactly where they will be starting here for the final race of the season. So we now know your top 24 that will move on into the second round. And speaking of, round 2 of WRLA Pepsi Cup Series qualifying from Pocono is coming your way very shortly after the break.
If you want to watch a stream, you have to be ad-free because he gives you like 3 in an hour or minute. Please just do what he wants and he will give you the victory royale because he is very good at Fortnite. Not really, I'm just kidding. Yeah, he is really good at Fortnite. Yeah, he is good at Fortnite.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen, and this time we are getting ready for round number 2 of WRLA Pepsi Cup Series qualifying from here at the Pocono Raceway. We now know our 24 drivers that will be duking it out to fight to get into round number 3, our final round, to go for the pole, of course. Zachary Fitzwater amongst the first to head out onto the racetrack, along with Ryan Little, Abby Walker, Moscow, Terry Walker. They're all heading out currently as we speak. But Fitzy is another driver who I'm really I really cannot wait to get his first Pepsi Cup Series win. He's been a part of WRLA since 2017. He's driven for, obviously 2 different teams. Of course, Fire Ice Racing in 2017, when I believe you had Nathan Hudson and Emmanuel Hartnett as the co-owners of Fire Ice Racing. Drove a number 44 Wilson Security Chevrolet before he went and signed on with NS Racing. And this is where he's been ever since then. Drove a number 59 Wilson Security Chevy. Also, Shell Pennzoil was on board. And then Pertec came along with Foster's. As far as sponsorships go, 2023 went from the 59 to 98, and this is where he's been ever since then. But most certainly cannot wait to see Zachary Fitzwater finally get his first Pepsi Cup Series win. You know, the time is coming for him. Maybe it could be later on tonight from here at the Pocono Raceway. A 57-47 to kick things off. That's for Zachary Fitzwater. And there's our 2025 champion, Kyle Craven, in the number 28. We know, of course, that he'll be coming back in 2026, but for which team, though? That is going to be the question on everybody's mind. Where will the 2025 Pepsi Cup champion find himself in 2026? He could find himself with the newly formed Death Rider Racing Team. He could find himself over at Vision Motorsports, or he could possibly find himself over at Durrani Racing, replacing Blaze in the number 69. Man, that would be kind of interesting. 2 ways that could happen. Of course, you know, obviously Craven replacing Blaze in the 69, or Craven going to drive for Russell Blaze. Either way, that would be pretty interesting. Abby Walker, top of the board, not anymore. Speaking of Blaze, he's at the top. A 49.988 with Josiah Munsell second with a 996. So far, the 2 drivers in this round that have broken into that 49-second bracket. Not by much, just barely. Steidel jumps up to third with a 50.97. A little bit of contact there between Holt and Whitlock, but they managed to keep it straight and not force each other up to the outside wall or go way down to the inside wall, because we've seen wrecks here at Pocono in the past. Definitely not a pretty sight whatsoever. Not a pretty sight at all. Speaking of Reagan Whitlock, she currently holds on to that final transfer spot to get into the final round. Not anymore. It's Terry Walker. But this is going to continuously change as this session continues on. So far, Terry Walker. Now it's Noah Clifton holding on to the final transfer spot, with Jerry Rose on the outside looking in. Not anymore. Now Ryan Little currently on the bubble, and Andrew Miller on the outside looking in. Less than 5 minutes to go here in this session. So far, well, not so far anymore, because I thought it was going to be Zachary Fitzwater holding on to that final spot. But now it is Abby Walker currently holding on to the final transfer spot, and Russell Blaze top of the board with a 49.988 still. And actually, Wayne Lopez and Emily Anderson find themselves inside of the top 5 with a 50.096. for Lopez, and then a 122 for Anderson. Now Munsell top of the board, and CG Hall jumps up to third with a 49.988. Blaze was able to better his time, but he just got knocked off of the top spot in the process. Need to turn off my light here for a second. Okay, there we go. There go Whitlock, Blaze, and as well as Munsell. They're all coming to pit road. Looks like they're probably gonna, well, I wouldn't say call it a session, but definitely analyze what's been working for them and what they could apply heading into round number 3. So far, all 3 of those cars that actually, you know, went to pit road nose to tail, they're all so far inside of the top 12, like very firmly established. With less than 3 minutes to go. There's the teammates. Of Phillips and Lopez. So far, Phillips 19th with a 53.16, currently tied with Bonsignor as of right now. And Wayne Lopez still 6th with a 0.96. Jerry Rose up to 7th with a 1.06. And Emily Anderson 8th with a 1.22. But I think it's still pretty impressive to me. I think it's still pretty impressive nonetheless that Munsell, also Blaze, they're all still up there. They're firmly established inside of the top 12. They're going to be fighting for the pole in the final round, regardless of what happens. There's Nathan Stapleton. Not doing too hot here in round number 2, but still going to get a pretty good mid-pack starting spot. Nonetheless, that is if his time doesn't improve here. A 53.28 here for Nathan Stapleton. Nonetheless. Stapleton has just had himself a pretty abysmal season. NS Racing hasn't had the greatest of seasons either. But it wasn't a bad one either. Of course, not Russell Blaze, but Andrew Miller had his moments under the sun. Zachary Fitzwater led in points for at least the opening chunk of the season. And Noah Clifton took NS Racing to victory lane at Atlanta. And of course, Atlanta being one of the first few races that Stapleton was able to turn things around and get some pretty good consistent finishes. Obviously, Homestead Miami just didn't fare too well for him, and that's what relegated him to a 25th place finish in the points standings. But still, a very great and valiant effort there for Nathan Stapleton, and he's looking to try to finish off the 2025 season on the strongest note possible. But if he's going to do it, he's going to have to do it from the 21st starting position. 48 seconds have been added, so that these drivers can put down one more good lap. But I don't really see any other changes taking place inside of the top 12. There's Rogel Dorn in the 86, currently 21st. He actually just took that away from Stapleton, just barely, by 5 1/1000ths of a second. And I don't really think there's going to be any other changes, as I mentioned, so we're doubling down on that. So, your top 12 will consist of Josiah Munsell, Russell Blaze, CG Halt, Reagan Whitlock, Nia Steidel, Wayne Lopez, Jerry Rose, Emily Anderson, Quentin Moore, Andrew Ramsey, Kyle Craven, and Aaron Abel. Those 12 drivers will be fighting it out for the pole in our third and last round of the 2025 season, at least when it comes to the qualifying side of things. And as for Abby Walker on down, that is officially where they will be starting for tonight's race here at Pocono. And man, this has honestly been pretty fun and interesting. So when we come back, ladies and gentlemen, it'll be our last final round of our final qualifying session of the year. Who will be on the pole for the Axalta 400 here at Pocono? Stay tuned. We'll find out after this break.
If you want to watch a stream, you have to be ad-free because he gives you like 3 in an hour or minute. Please just do what he wants and he will give you the victory royale because he is very good at Fortnite. Not really, I'm just kidding. Yeah, he is really good at Fortnite. Yeah, he is good at Fortnite.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back here at Pocono, and we're getting ready for our final round of the 2025 WRLA Pepsi Cup Series season. When it comes to qualifying, we now know our 12 drivers that will be fighting it out for the pole. It's only just going to be a matter of time before at least one of them is going to make the first move. They're all getting spawning in on pit road. Still all a mystery as to who's going to be the first one. Got 3 out of the 4 EGI cars on the grid. They're ready. And there's our champion, Kyle Craven. He's going to be the first one to make his way out onto the racetrack. As following the 17 of CG Hull, and then you have the 00 of Jerry Rose. Styles coming out. Oh man, this will be a very interesting last round of qualifying here. Who will be the final pole winner of the 2025 season? We are all about to find out the answers here in just another 8 minutes time, as more cars will eventually filter their way out onto the racetrack. And coming off of turn 3, and oh yeah, what turn 4? Kyle Craven is now on the clock. our 2025 champion. Looking to try to win the pole and try to end off the season on a strong, and try to end off the overall season on a strong note. Craven had been arguably one of the most consistent drivers all season long, and then he really came into his own when he won at Minnesota. With the way that this kid's been performing all year long, you knew it was going to happen. You knew he was going to win a race, and once that happened at Minnesota, you thought, well, how many more is he going to win? Is he going to win the championship? Well, he won at Phoenix and then later went on to win the championship the very next week. Craven right now second with a 50.563, and CG Holt up to the top of the board right now with a 351 to start things off. Right now, Rose in third with a 582, and then his teammate and boss, Andrew Ramsey, with a 592, and then Nia Seidel with a 614. Blaze to the top, well, Blaze up to fifth, now to sixth with a 588. But these times are going to be improving a little bit later on. Speaking of, Quentin Moore, top of the board. CG Holt, top of the board with a 49.766. That has to be the fastest time that we've seen all day long. That comes within the terms of, well, these drivers are under the sun. Obviously, this is the fastest time we've seen under sunlight. But definitely not the fastest times we've seen overall, because that came at the beginning of the session with the 48-second lap times. The grip level was a lot higher at that point. Josiah Munsell up to second with a 50.015. Quentin Moore third with a 131. Kyle Craven, well, actually Munsell and Craven are both tied with a 50.015. The millionths of a second is what is making the difference. Lopez to fifth with a 150. And then Jerry Rose with a 208, a 236 for Emily Anderson, a 238 for Nia Steidel, a 245 for Andrew Ramsey, a 249 for Russell Blaze. 5 minutes to go here in this final round of go or go homer qualifying sessions, or this knockout qualifying session. So far, CG Holt with now a 49.609. Moore to second with a 586, a 525 actually for CG Holt. He just absolutely improved the time. And Craven up to third with an 859, followed by Josiah Munsell with a 953. So far, the only 4 drivers in this session that have broken into that 49-second bracket. And Wayne Lopez just barely on the outside looking in when it comes to that category. Coming around through turn 3. Let's see if Lopez is able to better his time, try to break into that 49-second bracket. And he does. Third quickest with a 765, and Quentin Moore to the top of the board with a 49.482. The draft today, or at least in this session, is proving to be the most beneficial thing for these drivers. Munsell kicked back to fifth with a 49.905. Then Blaze, the fastest, not anymore. Well, he was the fastest out of the drivers that were in that 50-second bracket. Well, that trophy goes to Andrew Ramsey with a 176. 3 minutes to go here in this qualifying session. And Quentin Moore is in pretty good shape to win the pole here for the season, for the overall season finale in the 2025 WRLA Pepsi Cup Series season. Lopez sort of overdriving. Well, I wouldn't say overcooking the corner, but he definitely slid up quite a bit and almost hooked Kyle Craven in the left rear. Ooh. Lopez getting a little bit loose there going through the tunnel turn. Or not the tunnel turn, but turn 3, I should say. And that's going to open the door for Quentin Moore to drive right on by. But watch this corner's speed here heading through turn 1. This is going to be something that some of these drivers are going to have to really utilize. But you just saw it there for a little bit. Lopez was able to... He didn't get a good launch going through the corners, but you could definitely see that Lopez had better grip going through turn 1. So he was able to pull up alongside CG Halt and just drive right on by him heading down the Long Pond straightaway. So now he gets back out ahead of the 17, at least for the moment. 90 seconds to go. Josiah Munsell now up to 4th with a 789. And Craven kicked back to 5th with his 809. But so far, really no other changes inside of the top 10 currently. We look just a little bit lower. And then you have the 2 EGI cars of Emily Anderson and Nia Steidel with a 233 for Anderson and then a 238 for Steidel. Both drivers, of course, running out by themselves. 1 minute to go here in this final round of qualifying from Pocono. How about Reagan Whitlock of 52.18 in car number 9, currently in position number 9. Currently as of right now. Rose with a great run here. With a 52.08, that's going to put him 8th on the board. Andrew Ramsey, who won this race just 5 years ago, taking it away from Betty Johnson coming to the white flag, currently 6th on the grid with a 49.944. Blaze now the fastest driver out of those that are currently in the 52nd bracket. An additional amount of time has been added so that way these drivers can put down one more good lap, just to try to secure them a fast enough time to get themselves the best possible starting spot, or maybe try to see if they can go for the pole. Ramsey looking for theoretically a back-to-back win to end off his 2025 season. Maybe it could happen here in Pocono. I mean, it is very possible. But one thing is for sure, he's not going to win the pole because it is going to be Quentin Moore in the number 04 machine. He will win the pole for the final race of the season. CG Holt is going to line up alongside him. Then it's row number 2. It'll be Wayne Lopez and Josiah Munsell. Row 3 will consist of the 2025 champion, that being Kyle Craven and Andrew Ramsey. Russell Blaze and Jerry Rose will make up row 4. And completing your top 10, that will be Reagan Whitlock and the 43 of Aaron Abel in row number 5. And of course, Emily Anderson, Nia Steidel, they will make up row number 6. But man, some pretty good qualifying from here at the Pocono Raceway. And I can't wait. This is going to be a pretty solid, a pretty fun final race of the year from here at the Pocono Raceway. You can catch the action at 7 p.m. Eastern Time live on Twitch. That's going to be in another 5 hours. But we'll be back at that time. But anyways, thank you so much for watching WRLA Pepsi Cup Series qualifying from here at Pocono. If you guys like this, be sure to hit that like button. And if you haven't considered subscribing, I recommend you do so in order to keep up with some fine content coming out in the near future. And we will see you all at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Twitch for the overall season finale of the 2025 WRLA Pepsi Cup Series campaign.